All right, welcome to video 2 of lesson 3 in module 6, grade 5, of course. And now we're in your magnifying glass page of your Learn book, and it looks kind of like this. Mine looks a little bit different, but I just made it myself in my notebook. So what do we notice about the intervals here? Right? We notice that, it's a lot of space in between, but there's something specific, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 parts inside of each number. And remember from module 2 and module 3, these are fractional pieces. So their interval is 1/4 of a unit. 1/4 of a kilometer, 1/4 of a mile, 1/4 of a meter, whatever kind of unit you want. Your interval length is 1/4. All right, so we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. And what point do you see at 1 3/4, 0? Now you know that the first part of the ordered pair is your x, right? Your first number is your x. So let's go to 1 3/4 and up and down 0. So that's going to be r right there at 1 3/4. And do we know that for sure, or is that an estimate about the 1 3/4? You're right, it is for sure, because it's not in between lines somewhere. It is on a grid line, and we know for sure that it is 3/4 parts past 1. So it's 1 3/4. Very good. All right, and we could fill that into our chart here. 1 3/4 and 0, 1 3/4 and 0. You can fill that in on your chart as well. Hopefully you're getting pretty good at your ordered pairs, x and then y, and then x and then y in your chart as well. Okay, let's look at P. You see that your x-axis is not going in either direction, right? We're not going to the right or the left, so it's 0. So our first point on P is 0, and our second point is 1 3/4, right? Sorry, not second point, but second part of location on our y-axis is 1 3/4. So it would be 0, 1 3/4, 0, 1 3/4 in your ordered pair. All right. How about Q? 1. Now look at it really carefully. It really helps to put your finger on it. Maybe move your pencil or your pen straight up so you can see that that is not 1, but it's 1 1/4. 1 1/4. So using precision to make sure that we're getting the exact one, not being sloppy. And then 2 3/4 up. Can draw a little line there to help us see that that is 2 3/4. So 1 1/4, 2 3/4 is where our Q is located. All right. How about we compare our P and our R? What do we notice that's similar about our P and an R? They both have zeros, but P is a 0 in the X because we're not moving this way, and R is a 0 on our Y because we're not moving up and down. Okay, very good. Let's look at S. See if you can plot S. 2 1/4. And then 3/4, right? It's not above 1, it's less than 1, so it's 3/4 right there going up on our y-axis. So 2 1/4, 3/4. And how about, we don't have our T yet. That is odd. Do you have a T in your book? Maybe I forgot the T. That's funny. I forgot the T. Oh, yeah. T is right down here. Oh, The T has a special name, doesn't it? The T is called the origin. So it is 0, 0, 0, 0, and you can write origin, right? If that will help you remember, because you know, somebody could ask you tricky on a test. What is the ordered pair for the origin? All right, let's try this one. Now this one is not in your book, but check it out. Thinking about different intervals that we could have. What do you see as the interval here on the x-axis? 10, 20, 30, 40. Yes, we're counting by tens. And of course, it's the same on the y-axis too. Also counting by tens. What are the x and the y coordinates of W? Okay, so think about the x and the y coordinates of W. What is the ordered pair? Hopefully you're saying 0 and 30. 0 and 30. Very good. How about Z? What is Z? 40 and 0. Good job. All right. And how about V? 80, 70. Hope you're getting the hang of it, right? To the right and then up, to the right and then the up. When we locate a point on the coordinate plane, it is important to consider the scales of the axes, right? We need to consider the interval lengths for each axis instead of just counting the number of grid lines, right? Because if it's maybe counting by liters, or it could be counting by feet, right? Maybe it's something very large and we have to do 40 feet rather than 4, right? Why do you think an interval length of 10 was chosen? Maybe it's larger numbers, right? If W, V, and Z were plotted on a coordinate plane with an interval length of 1, what would that coordinate plane look like? Oh my goodness, it would be gigantic, right? Because we would have, instead of this being 10, this would be 1, and we'd have to count all the way up to at least, our biggest number is 80, right? At least 90. So having larger numbers in our intervals help us to keep our coordinate planes smaller. Okay? All right. Now also in your book on the back of your magnifying glass page, you have a chart. I think it's labeled A, right? So go ahead and look at A and look at the coordinate plane. Does it have the same scale? What is the scale here? X and Y have the same scale. And what do you notice about the interval length? It is 1/2. Very good. Your interval length is 1/2 because each one is broken into halves, right? Okay, that's awesome. Half, half, right? Okay. Let's plot A on the coordinate plane. So now we're going to be plotting some points rather than looking for points. The coordinates of point A are 5.5, 1.5. I just like to write them down so you can look at the numbers, not only hear me saying them, right? So how could we plot this point? What do we need to do? Go to the right 5.5, go up 1.5. Go to the right and go up. And we said that that was A. Very good. And how about B? B is going to be 3.5, 0. 3.5, 0. Go ahead and plot that. 3.5, 0. We're going to stay right there. Very good. and that is B. How about C? 4, 6.5. 4, 6.5. Can you plot that? 4, 6.5. C. And D, 0, 7.5. And E, 2, 5 1/4. All right, can you plot D and E? Okay, hopefully you said 0 and 7.5 for D. And 2 and 5 1/4, about halfway between 5 and 5.5. That is going to be your E. Did we have to estimate where to put this dot? Yes, because we don't have a grid line for that one. So we had to estimate somewhere between 5.5 and 5. Okay, very good. And then let's look at your B chart really quick. I know we're a little over time, so we're going to try and go quick on our B chart. Let's look at the x-coordinates of given points. So let's look at Q, 12, 20, and R, 8, 0, and S, 32, 32. Okay, interesting points, aren't they? What do you notice about our interval? We're counting by 4s. Do you see that? That is different, right? Okay. Our greatest coordinate is 32, and our greatest y-coordinate is 32. Okay. So let's go ahead and plot these. Go ahead and plot them. Okay, check your work against mine. Is that where your dots are? R, Q, and S. All right. Nice job, everybody. Thanks for your hard work. I appreciate you. Have a great day. Aloha.